Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 249, cover dated early October 1989, and this would have been on the racks in early July of the summer of '89. So stunning cover here by Marc Silvestri and Dan Green. Shades of Frank Frazetta and John Buscema here, and of course one of Silvestri's first gigs at Marvel was working on Conan, and Silvestri never a fan of using a ruler if he can get away with it, and this is a perfect illustration of that. So we have Havoc here on the cover with Lorna Dane, and eagle-eyed readers might recognize the form of Amphibious here. And wisely, editorial have decided to keep any caption off this image because it speaks for itself, with the exception of advertising that the book is now on sale twice a month. So let's open this one up to our opening splash page, and we have here representations of the 8 X-Men from the Outback era. And Havok is crossing off those who have left the team or died. So in the previous issue, 248, the issue concluded with Havok blasting Nanny's ship, and the team believes that Storm was killed in the blast. Her body anyway fell to ground, or so it appeared, and so he's crossing off Storm here. Longshot left the team in the previous issue, and Rogue of course went through the Siege Perilous in 247. So what we learn here, the creative team is Chris Claremont writer, Marc Silvestri penciler, Dan Green inker, Tom Orzechowski letterer, and Glynis Oliver colorist, and we're told that this is part 1 of the prelude to the Shattered Star. So this is a reference to this 8-pointed star that represented the Outback team, and the star is becoming shattered by losses. So if we open to the story proper, there's 22 story pages in this issue. We have Havok down in the computer room and we learn that Madeline, before Inferno, painted onto the table the images of the various X-Men. And she of course is also the designer of the star as well. We saw her working on that in previous issues before Inferno. But Havok here is distraught at his role in accidentally killing Storm, as the team believes. So on the computer screens we see a playback of the funeral for Storm, and Ali carving in with her laser power. Storm, our beloved friend, may she at last be granted the peace and joy too often denied her in life. So then Alex opens a beer. He's looking pretty disheveled in some of these images. Something I want to note here is I think this is one of the best artwork jobs by Silvestri and Green in terms of their collaboration on the book. The art here is stunning, and it looks very good in black and white in the Essentials format. Remember those black and white phone book collections of Marvel Comics? You really get to see the fine detail of the inking, this kind of screen door effect here in the background. And I'll point out other examples too of the hatching in relation to indicating shade. This looks really well in black and white. And just at this point I want to note, we do need to see, I hope that we do see sometime soon, an IDW artist edition of Silvestri's work on the X-Men. That would be just fantastic. So Alex anyway is really grieving the loss of Lorna, to Malice of Madeline, of course to her own demons, and then he's upset at the fact that in their hour of need, with Storm dead and buried, that Wolverine has not returned to the team. And as he throws his beer can at the computer there, he asks rhetorically, "Where the devil are you?" So then the computer screen or the computers actually switch from replaying the funeral to replaying key events from the previous issue. So this is a good way to catch up any readers who missed the previous issue. And we also get to see Silvestri's take on events that were penciled by Jim Lee in the previous issue. So we get the replay of Nanny's capture of Havok and Ali, and they're getting put into those suits, and whereby they attacked the other X-Men. And then we see Havok in his confusion blasting Nanny's ship and killing, as he thinks, Storm. Again, I like the colouring job here, the contrast between the primary colours for Havok's hair there, the yellow, and the light blue there indicating the playback on the computer screen. Really nicely done. And again, just the face here, this expression on Havok's face, this is true dejection, true guilt, and really nicely done by Silvestri. And then Havok, in his frustration, blasts the computer screen. The computers are playing back these events without Havok asking for it, and this is all part of a little mystery regarding the status of the computer system formerly owned by the Reavers, or run by the Reavers. And when he blasts the screen in frustration, he is caught in a back-flashing explosion, which knocks him unconscious. And then what we see is this mysterious gas and the computer screen reconstituting or fixing itself. And this is an indication, if nothing else, that there's something uncanny about the computer system in the Reavers' old headquarters, and that it would be self-repairing like that, and potentially sentient. But that is a mystery for another day. So in the meantime, a phone call comes through on the computer systems. It's for Alex. Who is it though? If we turn over the page, it turns out to be Lorna Dane, who is, as it turns out, in South America. And she is ringing from a public phone box Alex. Now, a question that certain commentators have had is, how does she have the number for the X-Men's who are believed to be dead by the world secret Australian Outback headquarters? So some theorizing is that maybe the X-Men set up call forwarding on some of their old numbers to the Outback system, and that might be an explanation, but it is a bit of an odd one because it's not explained in story anyway, how she's got Alex's number. And she's calling him looking for help, and we're learning that as time has gone by, she has reasserted herself against Malice, but there is some lingering essence of Malice nonetheless, who taunts her in her reflection in the on the inside of the phone box, where Malice says, she says, hey, I wasn't the one who ran away afterwards. That this is after the apparent killing of Sinister at the end of Inferno. You could have surrendered to your pals, but you didn't. And Lorna responds, probably because you forced me. But then Malice says, dear little Lorna, if I was as in control as you like to think, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And what makes it really delicious is the fact that in the final bedrock analysis, all you're doing here is talking to yourself. So in real frustration, Lorna destroys the phone box, injuring herself a little bit, losing control. And then these sailors come upon her, Spanish-speaking sailors, and they take care of her, and they take her on to be seen by a doctor with his medical kit. And well, actually, this younger sailor is sent away to call the doctor. But as he's going away and he's thinking that this other guy gets all the luck, getting all the best women in whatever seaport they put into, he's KO'd from behind by, well, who could it be? We'll learn later in the issue. And again, I just want to point out here the art, the fine hatching here, these fine lines indicating the mistiness of the twilight scene at the seaport, And then just this fine detail here for the houses at the seaport. Just really, really nice artwork here by Silvestri and Green. Their collaboration really mature now by this point on the series. And then we switch back to Australia, and again we get this wonderful indication of the outback landscape and these very fine lines indicating the lighting here in Australia, and also the colours. Glynis Oliver's colours really marvelous here in suggesting the kind of the red and earth colours for the Australian outback. And we have a scene here with Colossus, who is working on his art but is absolutely frustrated by the work that he's producing. Claremont established all the way back in Uncanny X-Men 174 that Colossus was an artist. That's the first time we saw him working on his art, and that was back when Paul Smith was the artist. So it turns out that the Reavers, who we saw in the previous issue taking on a robot version of Wolverine, are in Australia. They're back in the Outback. Well, actually, it's Lady Deathstrike and the cyborg survivors of Wolverine's attack on the Hellfire Club in Uncanny X-Men 133, if memory serves. And they've teamed up with the Reavers, and they are here on a recon mission. And Lady Deathstrike picks up Peter's thrown away art and starts to analyze it and wonders. Colossus is the most stable and centered of them. This is unlike him. So she's recognizing and picking up that something's not right with the X-Men, with the team. So then we go back to the Reavers headquarters, some distance removed, so we don't know exactly where they are. And we've got Colossus's art here, so we've got this kind of macabre and violent imagery. And Lady Deathstrike observes, see the violence of form and content. Life is a torment for him. Not even death is a release, merely the prelude to greater tortures. There is no joy left in him. So interesting take on Colossus at this point in the series. None of the X-Men are doing particularly well. And we have here Donald Pierce, who wants to remind Deathstrike that the X-Men are our enemies. We have sworn their destruction. Whereas Deathstrike says, my concern is for Wolverine. He's the object of my vengeance. I care nothing for the others. So Claremont's always very good to give the villains proper characterization, and his treatment of Deathstrike is a sympathetic one. For her, it's a matter of family honor to take out Wolverine. The last time we saw her in the series properly was in Uncanny X-Men 205, when Wounded Wolf, when she went after Wolverine, and he got the better of her and spared her life despite her begging him to finish her off. So Pierce reiterates that their concern is the X-Men, and he gives them a raison d'etre for taking out the X-Men. We Reavers are humanity's defenders, Lady Deathstrike, against the scourge of mutant kind. We shall prevail, and they expunged from the face of the earth. And then he kisses her. So interesting, the implication that there's some kind of weird romance between Lady Deathstrike and Donald Pierce. So then we pick up with the X-Men again back in Australia, and Havoc specifically, who's waking up from being knocked unconscious and maybe a hangover to boot. And it turns out that someone has brought him to his bedroom, given him a potted plant of flowers and a note. A lady named Lorna called for you, wouldn't say from where. The computer took the message. She was crying, sounded like she needs help real bad. Hope you feel better. And so there's been some speculation about who this is. Some people thought it might be Gateway. Other people think it's Jubilee. I come down on the side that it's Jubilee has done this, the note and the plant. It sounds like her. And remember, she's hiding out in the town at this time. And here we have Psylocke just coming into Alex's room without even knocking, as he thinks. And she argues that she heard him cry out, and she was investigating to see if anything was wrong. And he's pretty cheesed off in general. So he says, look, you could have picked the thoughts out of my skull and saved yourself the trip. But she says she doesn't pry into friends' thoughts, and that really her chief issue is keeping other people's thoughts out of her head. And then he tells her about what happened in the computer room, and waking up in his bed complete with flowers and the note. And then they go down to the computer room to investigate, and they discover that it's repaired itself, or that it is repaired. And Psylocke sees in Havok's mind's eye what happened. And so we have this little character moment between the two of them, where she's also commenting on his painting out the faces of the X-Men who have died or otherwise left the team. And then they have a little bit of dialogue about, how it seems like that she has appointed herself boss upon the death of Storm. And she says to him, does that bother you? Frankly, yes. And again, there's been some speculation about that. Why is he bothered by that? But back in Uncanny X-Men 219, Psylocke suggested killing Havok. So maybe he's got personal reasons for wondering about her being suited to the role of team leader. And then he uses the computer systems, and we've got a nice color hold here for the globe, zeroing in on the origin of the phone call all the way to Punta Arenas, Chile. And so the X-Men are, and that the phone line is currently out of service because, of course, Lorna destroyed it earlier in the issue. So then we have Havok's determination to go help Lorna, whereas Psylocke is more cautious and wonders about the degree to which Lorna is still a member of the Marauders, still under the influence of malice. But she says, if the X-Men are to survive Havok, now more than ever, we have to be a team. So they go as a team to Punta Arenas, and Gateway here whips up one of his portals with his bull roarer. Psylocke arrives in her armor, and they're ready to roll to Punta Arenas. We also learn that we learn here in one of the pieces of dialogue that I wonder, is it at this point or later, that Gateway is only capable of teleporting them back via the same portal that they go to a particular place. So that's an interesting bit of information that just turns up in this particular issue in terms of a limit on Gateway's abilities. And we also have Alex's speculation regarding the flowers and the note. Colossus suggests perhaps the computer was responsible. After all, it repaired itself. And Havok speculates maybe it was Gateway. Wouldn't that be a hoot to discover that our old mutant teleporter was taking care of us, just like Professor X used to? So it turns out that one of Claremont's long-term ideas for the series was that Gateway could potentially be a type of mentor ultimately for the X-Men, rather like Professor X, because Claremont was looking to was working up to killing Professor X off permanently. But of course, all of that got interfered with by editorial in the months and years to come on the series. So then we go back to Punta Arenas, and we have this little scene here set in one of the taverns, and it is interrupted suddenly by the arrival of these Savage Land barbarian types, as it turns out, riding these ostrich dinosaurs. So pretty cool imagery here. And again, it reminds me that Silvestri's, one of Silvestri's first gigs at Marvel, was working on Conan. And this is the kind of scene that wouldn't be out of place in a Conan comic. So then the Savage Landers, well, they are savage in their dispatch of the sailors. Pretty brutal here. And again, nice colouring choice by Glynis Oliver, going with the red here to indicate the violence of the Savage Land barbarian riders here. And one of them kills the sailor who was looking after Lorna in her injured state. And then she's caught with this bola, and she winds up crashing out through the window of the tavern and presumably picked up by this rider. And then we have the arrival of the X-Men. Here it is. It's Psylocke says, "Remember, Gateway can only teleport us home from the place we arrived." So that's an interesting little detail. And then Psylocke is stunned by all of the psychic trauma of the islanders who are being, the villagers who are being killed violently by the barbarian riders. So then we have a few pages of the X-Men taking on these antagonists, and pretty cool art by Silvestri. Havoc lets rip with his plasma blast, destroying this ostrich dinosaur creature. Nice way of indicating it here. Really blows the flesh right off that creature. And Allison says to him, "Geez, Havoc, did you have to? Considering my power, Dazzler, it's hard to do less," is his response. So then Colossus gets one of the barbarian riders prisoner. That's what he usually does. He usually gets a prisoner, like he did in Inferno with one of the demons, for questioning. So the guy says that they should yield while they still have lives to save. But Havoc gets him by the collar and threatens him, rather in the manner of Wolverine, with Wolverine missing from the team. He says, "Hold that thought. Psylocke's a lady. She has scruples. I'm not so forgiving. How about I sizzle you, say, a limb at a time till you decide to cooperate? Heat so intense, the stumps will instantly cauterize so you won't bleed to death. Tough guy like you. Bet you'll last a long time." So this is quite a threat he's given this guy, who looks quite perturbed by it. So then there is an interruption, and we have the arrival of, from the Savage Land, these mutates. Some of them created by, like Barbarous, created by Magneto way back in the Neil Adams run on the X-Men. But a new character here, Whiteout, who blinds them with her power. And so Barbarous is able to get the drop on Colossus, since Colossus is blinded here. And let's continue. I really like this sequence here where Ali takes on Raza, and then this bit here with Amphibious, who tackles Psylocke. So we see him with the speed lines, the motion lines, jumping down on her, and then wham jumping off with her, holding her by the cloak. And then Raza, despite his blindness, dodging Allison's laser blasts, photon blasts. And then this bit here with Psylocke hanging from the lamppost, and Amphibious pulling on these gloves with these metal spikes at the end, and threatening to play with her rather menacingly. So cool stuff. But Psylocke uses her psychic powers to direct Allison, who is able to blast Raza and Amphibious. And then we get this real kind of cartooning type panel of Barbarous using his forearms to really pound, bam, 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 Colossus here in the bottom panel. So just super fight choreography and storytelling, panel to panel, on these pages here from Silvestri and Green. And then we get a close-up on Colossus, who is getting a message from Psylocke, who is able to direct him, despite his blindness, to grab Barbarous by the throat. Again, this is I really like this drawing here of Barbarous's face. You really get a sense of the flesh on his neck being pressed up by Colossus's organic steel grip. And also, as I was looking at this earlier and looking at it also in black and white, I was thinking, this looks like a self-portrait by Silvestri, like he was looking in the mirror to get this angle. It looks like him, if you take away the really long hair there. And so Colossus thumps Pow, Barbarous, into whiteout. Well, she dodges, it seems. So the X-Men there seem to have evened the odds on things, but then we have the arrival of the big bad, who turns out to be Zaladane. Last seen in the annual some months back in '88. Uncanny X-Men annual number 12. And she here has Lorna taken prisoner and is taking out Lorna by having her breathe deeply the fragrance of this black lotus, which sends her happily to dreamland. I like the rendition of the Dino Riders here and the seaport villagers as well. Nice use of fine line hatching. And basically an interesting motivation, well, stated motivation by Zaladane here. She's come to destroy the seaport of Punta Arenas for the recent wanton befouling of Antarctic waters by a vessel based at this port, which ran aground and contaminated the sea with its cargo of crude oil. And one of the villagers says it was an accident. Had the ship not been there in the first place, it would not have happened, is Zaladane's response. So then the X-Men reveal themselves, Psylocke, Ali, and Colossus, and Ali makes the threat. If you're serious about killing its people, you better be prepared to sacrifice your own life in the bargain. And Zaladane is skeptical. Only 3 of them daring to challenge her horde of barbarian riders and warriors. But Colossus makes the point, you know how many we are, Zaladane, and he thinks, or at least pretend to be, provided she does not suspect we are bluffing, and what we can do, make your judgments accordingly. So she thinks about it and decides to offer in exchange her prisoners for theirs, plus a safe withdrawal for her forces. Are those terms acceptable? And so a détente is agreed, and Zaladane and her troops depart on flyers that were built by the High Evolutionary. And Psylocke says, I identified Zaladane from Havok's memories as the Evolutionary's assistant Zala. So that is the callback to X-Men Annual number 12. And Havok himself is disgusted. I'm an X-Man. I should know all our old villains. What she want with Lorna anyway, he thinks to himself. But he's disguised himself as one of the barbarians in Zaladane's army, and so he's going undercover to the Savage Land with them. But one of the prisoners not exchanged is Lorna herself, so that's not explained in story, but obviously Zaladane wouldn't want to give her away. And we also learn that in the final or the second last panel here, that Zaladane regards Lorna as her sister. So Zala and Dane and Lorna Dane, are they sisters? This is something that is going to get explored further in the next issue. And just one last point on the art here. I really like this backlit Colossus, and Silvestri in this issue doing a fair bit of backlighting as well for atmospheric effect, for the implication of mood, but nicely done here on this particular page with the fire in the background. So I hope that you enjoyed this review of Uncanny X-Men 249. If you did, please like the video, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.